Welcome to another episode of the Ivan Herrera Show. It is week 8, and I am going to be sharing some players that you should be targeting in trades and also keeping a close eye on just in general. And the first one we're going to get into is going to be Garrett Wilson from the New York Jets. The addition of Davante Adams, there was going to be, of course, some kind of concern on whether or not Adams was going to hamper any of Garrett Wilson's touches and even looks, but that wasn't really the case in week number 7. And even with the bad matchup, we still saw that Garrett Wilson was able to be productive with getting 9 targets, and that's part of why I actually wasn't worried about the addition of Davante Adams, because if anything, it'll open up the defenses a lot more, being that they have to key in on 2 solid wide receivers. And now that we have that tough matchup with Pittsburgh out the way, the matchups get so much better for the Jets. If you look at over here, you have New England, who is bottom 12 in points allowed to opposing wide receivers. Then you have Houston, who's bottom 10 in that category. Then you have Arizona, who's bottom 7th. And then you have Indianapolis, who's actually middle of the pack. And the thing is, what already is going to give me at least peace of mind as to why I want to get Garrett Wilson is the fact that you know he's going to still get looks, and he also is efficient when he does get those looks, because currently right now he actually is top 9 among all wide receivers in route wins. So Garrett Wilson for me is someone that you should be targeting, and if you are contemplating on whether or not you should start him, that should always be a no-brainer for me. And with that said, I think Garrett Wilson is a great trade target, especially if the manager is a little bit worrisome about the addition of Davante Adams in the mix there with the Jets. This next player is someone that I actually was looking to trade away, and actually did in a few leagues, but if you are looking to upgrade at wide receiver, I actually would now look to target Geroge Pickens. The reason why I'm now changing my stance on Geroge Pickens is because who he has now under center. With Russell Wilson, we can see right away that he is not only going to attempt to get the ball to Geroge Pickens, but he also is more effective. In my last video, I talked about the effectiveness that we saw already with play action with Russell Wilson compared to Justin Fields. And for me, you even could hear it in the broadcast on Sunday Night Football about how Chris Collinsworth was already seeing the difference of the touch that Russell Wilson has when throwing the deep ball compared to Justin Fields. And this led me to want to do a deep dive on Russell Wilson's previous stats when throwing the deep ball as well as accuracy. And in 2020, Russell Wilson ranked 8th in deep ball attempts. He was 5th in true completion percentage. In 2021, he was 5th in deep ball attempts with a 25% true completion percentage. And in 2022, again, struggled a little bit there with Denver, but he was 1st in deep ball attempts with a 26 true completion percentage. And in 2023, even though we still saw him struggle there with Denver, he actually was still 9th in deep ball attempts and had a rank of 9th in true completion percentage. So we're seeing a huge difference where you're not only going to get a quarterback that is going to attempt to throw the deep ball to Geroge Pickens, but also someone that does it in accurate fashion. And I think that with the schedule that you see Geroge Pickens having pretty soon now, it's very favorable. In week 8, he is going to be facing the New York Giants, who actually allow the 14th fewest points to opposing wide receivers. But what I'm looking forward to actually is the window from week 10 to week 15, because 5 of those 6 games are going to be versus favorable defenses that allow a good amount of points to opposing wide receivers. So what you could do is, if Geroge Pickens has a down game, you can actually leverage the dip and see if you can get him on your rosters in a possible trade to help out your fantasy team. This next player I'm going to share is more of a buy high. I know we talk about sell high and buy low, but I think you need to consider buying high. And that just means going for a player that's going to improve your roster in general. But it is going to cost you, of course, a hefty amount to do so. You're going to have to be very strategic on how you acquire this player. And this player is going to be Alvin Kamara from the New Orleans Saints. And I know you're probably thinking, oh, well, if it was so easy to trade for him, I'd go get him. But okay, he's the RB2 and he just signed his extension. And for me, the production is something that I didn't anticipate, especially considering the system and the team and who you had a quarterback and the coach. But it hasn't been all that bad for Alvin Kamara, and he's been consistent all year long. He had his first single-digit performance last week, and despite him having that single-digit performance in fantasy, he's had double-digit touches in every single game this year, including last week. He's 1st in target share, he's 6th in carries, he's 1st in weighted opportunities. This backfield is all Alvin Kamara's, and Kamara does have a tough matchup versus the Los Angeles Chargers. They actually allow the 2nd fewest points to opposing running backs, and not only does he have a tough matchup with the Chargers, he also has a tough one versus the Falcons, who actually allow the 5th fewest points to opposing running backs, and he also has another one versus Cleveland, who actually allow the 7th fewest points to opposing running backs as well. And that could be a dip that you can anticipate and actually maximize on, because after that, towards the end of the season, including the fantasy playoffs, I have to always look ahead. The the matchups that he has, 4 of the last 5 are actually really favorable. And I think overall too, with Alvin Kamara obviously being an elite running back, this is going to be a buy high candidate that you're going to have to pursue at a hefty price. But however, if you want to wait and actually maximize on the dip within these next couple weeks because of what we think may happen, I would still do whatever I can to get him on my roster, considering that he has a very elite schedule to go along with an elite upside ability with the receiving work. Hey, you made it halfway through the video. We have 2 more players to go over. Before I do so, if you've got value in this so far, do me a favor. Most of you aren't subscribed yet, so hit the subscribe button as well as like. Let's get to the last 2 players. And this next player is going to be Rachaad White. I know that most of consensus wasn't big on Rachaad White this upcoming season, but for me, I always had a bias, and I know that it didn't come with an argument that he was efficient because that's the metric I could never defend. However, he had a week 7 performance that was extremely elite, especially versus a tough matchup versus Baltimore. He had 10 carries, 40 yards, caught 6 receptions on 6 targets for 71 yards and 2 touchdowns, finished as RB2. And again, efficiencies as a runner will always be a concern. He's actually ranked 66 in true yards per carry. But what Rachaad White makes his money on, he makes his money off his receiving upside. And check this stat out as well. It's called explosive play rating, or also known as EPX, and it is a comprehensive rating of a player's explosiveness, factoring in per play efficiency and total volume of explosive plays created. And the scale here that you're seeing says that the average is set at 100, and you can see here in the screenshot that Rachaad White's EPX currently is ranked at 88 versus 100 when it comes to rushing, having him ranked 41st among all RBs. But you're seeing the receiving one is where he's most effective. He's currently at a 118 grade versus 100, having him ranked as 8th among all running backs. And then now you couple that with the stats that are just showing us right now. He's 4th in receptions among all RBs. He's 6th in receiving yards. He's 4th in routes run. And with the unfortunate news that we saw Chris Godwin as well as Mike Evans missing some time, Chris Godwin's going to be out for the year. You have Mike Evans out till after the week 11 bye, so it's going to be, he won't be available to week 12. He's going to get all that work. We saw that he was able to be someone that they can trust and rely on, and very similar to what we spoke about with Alvin Kamara, the schedule is going to be tough. I mean, he's going to be facing the Falcons, and then he has Kansas City, but his receiving upside cancels any kind of matchup concerns in my book, especially with the fact that the Bucs are going to be short with any kind of weapon. So Rachaad White is going to be the one that's going to get those looks from Baker Mayfield, and someone that you should target in trades to get on your roster. And this last player I'm going to want you to target is going to be Tony Pollard. I know, not a sexy name by any means. Anything I've recommended with Tennessee hasn't been really anything I've been proud of. You have Calvin Ridley, DeAndre Hopkins. But the point is, Tony Pollard currently is ranked 21 among all running backs on points per game. He has been very consistent all season long. You see here the outputs that he's had in his game logs. He's finished as the RB12, RB18, 14, 15. Of course, a few duds sprinkled in there. And then when you just analyze the snap percentages between Tony Pollard and Spears, you can see it is no clear competition. I mean, this is clearly his backfield. You're looking at right here, 69% snap percentage versus Tajee Spears 36. So there's no backfield competition. He obviously is getting all the looks, and of course even the matchup he has coming up right now versus Detroit is going to be tough, but I just love the receiving upside that these RBs are able to provide. And if you look at it right here, currently he's 5th in target share, he's 15th in overall receptions, he's also ranked 13th in carries, so he's getting the work on both ends. And also too, when you look at the EPX for him, he is currently 107 out of 100 in rushing. He's right at average at 100 in the receiving category, and then he's also had 13 explosive plays, ranking him 6th overall among all RBs, and someone worth getting for your fantasy roster. Hey, you made it to the very end of this video. Thank you so much for doing so. It means the world to me. Hey, these videos take a lot of time and effort to research, to edit, so do me a solid. If you found value in it, hit that like button, subscribe, and be sure to check out some of these other videos here that I have on the channel that can help you out. But hey, for now, best of luck to you in week 8. Take care. God bless. Peace.